Good day. I am Joshua Lambe, and I'm a project manager with the City of New York Department of Design and Construction's nonprofit reimbursement program. If you're watching this, then congratulations on receiving a capital award from the City of New York. I will guide you through the steps for each phase and the process of your organization receiving reimbursement for purchases of equipment and/or vehicles. The DDC Nonprofit Reimbursement Program allows for the reimbursement of purchases made by not-for-profit organizations. These monies are allocated via awards from the city's capital budget to New York City's elected officials. In order for purchases to be reimbursable to the organization, they must meet specific eligibility requirements and serve a city purpose to benefit the people of New York City. Under the DDC Nonprofit Reimbursement Program, we administer awards categorized by vehicles, equipment, and initial outfitting projects. For an award to be eligible, it must contain at least $50,000 of reimbursable items. For older awards from fiscal year 2020 and prior, the amount is $35,000. The next slide lists items that are not eligible under this program. These ineligible items are not reimbursable because they have a short useful life, are backup items which are not in constant use, or are portable devices which are prone to theft. Your DDC project manager will assist your organization in identifying such items. As mentioned in slide 3, we administer 3 project types. We will talk about these awards in further detail. We will begin with vehicle awards. Vehicles under this program include passenger vans, mobile medical units, food delivery trucks, and ambulances. The next slide includes information you must know about these awards. While all points listed here are important, one point that stands out is that vehicles must be parked in a secure area. We cannot approve a vehicle award if it's parked on a sidewalk or a driveway without adequate fencing. Equipment projects are awarded to facilities such as schools, hospitals, clinics, and community centers. They include devices such as CT scanners, surgical robots, theater equipment, and computer network systems. Equipment awards can be tricky if they contain multiple components, as they must be connected together to form a system, thus no part can function independently. If there are multiple equipment systems, each one must meet the minimum award threshold amount mentioned earlier in this presentation. Finally, we have initial outfitting projects, which cover purchases for a newly occupied facility that is leased, purchased, renovated, or constructed. There are strict guidelines for initial outfitting purchases. Some of the ones that we will highlight include a minimum unit price of $165 per item, unless it's for an award from fiscal year 2020 and prior, where the minimum cost is $110 per item. All equipment must be ordered within 6 months of the move-in date. The registration and reimbursement for awards consists of 5 phases. For this presentation, we will cover the budget and pre-CP review. CP refers to a certificate to proceed, which I'll talk about that later. Registration and reimbursement phases. The CP request phase is handled by DDC, and the lien clearance phase goes in hand with the reimbursement phase, which I'll also explain later. We begin with the budget and pre-CP phase. Your organization will submit to DDC documentation based on the proposed equipment or vehicle purchases. DDC will send a checklist of items you must provide. These items, which you will see on the next slide, are reviewed by DDC and forwarded to the New York City Office of Management and Budget, hereby known as OMB, for review and approval. The items on the left side are required for all awards regardless of what is being purchased. For the items on the right side, DDC will notify you which ones, if any, apply to your award. There is a link at the bottom of this slide where you can download blanks and templates for these items. Here is the budget and pre-CP checklist, which lists the items you saw in the previous slide. There are bullet points next to each item to assist you in if and how you should complete them. Many of these items are based on your organization's CAP grants application, but these details may have changed by the time you reach the budget and pre-CP stage. The first item is the heart of the budget and pre-CP phase, and that is to schedule a budget. Pertinent information such as the description, make, model, and quantity of each item, date of purchase, and the address of where the item will be used is entered on the spreadsheet. These items should be consistent with the list of items provided in your initial CAP grants application. Here is an example of what the budget looks like. The next two slides will have notes on how the budget should be completed. Avoid providing generic or vague descriptions of items. OMB must know exactly what is being purchased. If purchasing a vehicle, you will enter the address of where it is stored when not in use, and as mentioned earlier, it must be in a secure location. Not all items or their amounts are reimbursable. Their dollar figures must be identified in the non-city funded column, and explanations for their ineligibility must be provided. See one example of this at the bottom of this slide. Here is another example of an item with ineligible amounts. The city can only reimburse your organization for up to the amount of your award. Each item must have an exact or estimated purchase date. Submissions with to be determined as a date of purchase will not be accepted. Items purchased for your award must be used during the hours and days in accordance with your CAP grants application. You must provide a justification for any changes made to the expected usage. The useful life statement is a signed attestation acknowledging that the equipment purchased will be in use for at least a specified amount of time. For IT purchases, it's at least 3 years, and for all other purchases, a minimum amount of time is 5 years. Your organization is responsible for the upkeep of these items and are required to replace them in the event they are damaged or stolen. Here is a template of the useful life statement where you will enter the required information as highlighted. It is possible to have more than one source for your useful life estimate. Aside from an accompanying statement from a manufacturer, all signatures on the useful life statement itself must come from individuals that are employed by your organization. DDC has several template letters based on the type of equipment purchased and if the equipment has varying degrees of usefulness. The information in the Non-Discrimination Affirmation is straightforward. Failure to comply by these laws could result in forfeiture of equipment to the city. Your organization may have existing contracts with other City of New York agencies that provide services related to the use of equipment or vehicles from your capital award. You must provide details on these contracts in an operating contracts letter and provide copies of these existing contracts. If your organization has no such contracts, then you must state that in the letter. This slide shows template letters for awards with and without operating contracts. Make sure to identify the fiscal year, project ID, and award amount in the reference section. This information is provided by your DDC project manager. If a purchased vehicle is parked in a facility not run by your organization, then you must provide a copy of the lease agreement from the parking facility. Make sure to notify DDC during the registration process or the OMB compliance officer after reimbursement is issued if you change parking locations. The Information Systems Management Questionnaire applies to equipment awards with items that are connected to form a system. You will answer questions about their method of connectivity and use of any applications associated with it. You will also provide a diagram showing how the items form a system as seen on the next slide. The purpose of the equipment systems diagram is to show that each item has a wired or wireless connection to the main piece of hardware or to other components of the system, such as this IT network. Any item that functions independently from the system will not be reimbursed by the city. An equipment system may be connected to items the organization owns that are not part of the award. You must provide a list of such items along with their make, model, cost, date of purchase, and a written affirmation that they will last at least 5 years after receiving reimbursement for the other items. It is a responsibility of your organization to replace any item that ceases to function. Hospitals that purchase medical equipment systems must provide a letter affirming information such as the connectivity of the components as one system, useful life of the equipment, and that there are no items that are consumable, disposable, or spare parts. The major medical systems letter must be in the format shown in this template and on your organization's letterhead, signed by an authorized staff representative. If your organization is furnishing a newly occupied facility, then you must complete the initial outfitting affirmation. One notable difference between an initial outfitting and an equipment award is that the items purchased do not need to function together as a system. Here is a blank copy of the affirmation. Make sure you check yes or no for each question, even if it doesn't apply to your facility. Provide supporting documentation for each question where you answered yes. If you are leasing a facility, make sure that the lease expiration date is at least 5 years from the date the affirmation is completed. As a reminder from slide 10, all equipment must be ordered no later than 6 months after the move-in date. If you are purchasing software licenses for use on city-funded equipment, then you must review the terms and conditions of the licensor's end-user license agreement to determine if the license is transferable by its terms. If they are, then provide the agreement and highlight the noted language. If the license is not transferable, then the licensor must agree via a preliminary approval letter to execute the assignment of software license and consent once a funding agreement is registered. This allows transferability of the license to the city in the event the city repossesses the equipment due to an event of default under the funding agreement. In the software checklist, you will list each software product and answer yes or no questions as noted in the table. Do not include products that are for subscription services, as they are not eligible for reimbursement. Also include each licensor's end-user license agreement. If your award contains at least $250,000 of eligible equipment, and there are items that are minimally attached to the premises by the methods mentioned in this slide, then you must complete the minimally attached movable property questionnaire. You will answer questions based on the location of the equipment, the methods of how the equipment is attached, its costs to remove and reinstall the equipment at another location, and the ownership status of the premises. If your award has minimally attached equipment, your landlord and/or lender must provide a personalty agreement acknowledging that any attached items are not deemed to be fixtures and thus is not part of the real property. You will include a list of minimally attached items. If your organization has existing liens with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, they must provide a subordination agreement which excludes any city-funded equipment from its lien. This is done in the form of a UCC 3 amendment. DDC suggests that your organization does not buy any equipment prior to registration, as not all items are guaranteed to be reimbursable. Initial outfitting awards are an exception to this due to the strict time frame of purchases. Quotations for vehicles or medical systems must have full specifications to flag any potential ineligible features. During the review process, DDC and OMB may have questions and comments pertaining to the items submitted. Your organization should make a reasonable effort to provide documentation in a timely and accurate manner to avoid delays in the approval process. Always ask questions if you're not sure of something, as there may be exceptions to some rules in the process. You can reach us at the email address you see on screen. This concludes the introduction and budget and pre-CP phase. The next section will cover the registration phase.